asked you to do. We've done quite a few in class, so I may or may not redo them again. So the point of the activity is, or the questions is to, obviously besides answering, is manipulate the numbers, right, so that you can work with them easily, right? So the first one, wish I could see. It's so tiny. Good thing I have a copy. So 1 second. So the first one looks like this. 1 over 1 plus 1 over 1 plus 2/3. Is that what it is? Okay, so I'll do it. Okay, I'll do it this way. I'll do it step by step. So I'm done. First thing we want to change is the bottom here. The 1 2/3 is just 1 2/3. Okay, I'm really going to take time here and do this step by step. So notice that's the first change. And 1 2/3, again, copy everything else. And you don't have to do it in this many steps. But 1 2/3 is the same thing as 5/3, right? That's not an equal sign, by the way. It's just an arrow, okay? So now let me highlight over here. Take a moment to highlight. Now I'll take care of this guy. Oops. Take care of that. Okay, the 1 plus 5/3. So 1 divided by 5/3, right? So I'm going to do it here at the bottom. 1 divided by 5/3. That's what that expression is horizontally. So 1 divided by 5/3 is the same thing as 1 times 3/5. So that whole thing becomes 3/5. Okay. So now I can continue and then go up with an arrow to see if I got my new change. So that becomes 1. And 1 3/5 is just 1 plus 3/5 is 1 3/5. Let me change that bottom. All right, I'm going to change that to a improper fraction. 5 times 1 is 5 plus 3, so that's 8/5. So that says 1 divided by 8/5. And again, now we can finally change and write this horizontally, and that becomes like this, which we're going to rewrite as 1 times 5/8, right? Because division is the same thing as multiplying by the reciprocal. And final answer, 5/8. Okay, so again, you don't have to do it in this, however many steps we took here. I've been showing you step by step because, so that you, okay, if I figure out, here's my finger. I can't. Okay, here we go. All right, and then number 2. Oh, number 2. So we have 1,500, 1,500,000 voters in Smithville. Out of that, 76% are registered voters. So not everybody in town is voting, only 76%. So find that out, right? So the number of people who are going to vote, multiply that by 0.76, right? We change 76% to that. And that's going to give me the number of voters. All right, so just bear with me for a little bit. So now I know how many people are voting. Okay, so among the people that can vote or are allowed to vote, not everybody vote. And we have here in the question that only 42% of them vote. So the number of voters, right, we know how many voters there are. But out of those voters, only 42% voted. So now if I multiply that by 0.42, I get the number of people who actually voted. Okay, so now I know not everybody voted, so I have the number of people who actually voted. And now, from the people who actually voted, 53% of them voted for the winning mayor. So from this group right here that actually voted, multiply that by 0.53, and we can find out the number of people who voted for the winning mayor, which is what we wanted to find anyway, right, for the winning mayor. So we can do that, find two numbers, do this process, multiply these two, then multiply the product of that times that, and the product of that times 0.53, times 0.53, or we could have just written, right, if you had a calculator, this is definitely a calculator question, times 0.76, and sorry, when I do that, times 0.76 times 0.42 times 0.53, right? Because you can write this as a one long expression right here. And that would give you the answer, whatever that answer is, okay? Which means it's not as important as you understand it, that you could have done this, okay? Next question. Find 6 and 5/12 of 720. 6 and 5/12 of 720. Okay, why can't I erase this? Yeah, got it. Clear annotations. 6 and 5/12 of 720. Percent, sorry, of 720. So 5/12 actually doesn't come out to be a nice, pretty number. It comes out to be a repeating. Is it a repeating decimal? Okay, so changing to a decimal, I don't see too many advantages over that. So just to confirm, 5 divided by 12 equals, yeah, 0.4166666666. I don't think that's the reason why. I'm trying to think of 6.5. So let me give you a different example. So let's say 20% of 40. Let's ask you if I ask you to do 20% of 40, right? So one of the options was to change the decimal, the fraction, the percent to a decimal, 20% becomes 0.2, and then you multiply by 40. That's one way of doing it, okay? Now, the other way of doing it is changing this, the percent, to a fraction. What's 20%? Isn't 20% 20? Percent is something out of 100. 20 and 100 times 40. You get the same answer. So whether you multiply, whether you change it, and let me highlight this, whether you change it to a 20% to a decimal and multiply by 40, or change it to a fraction and multiply by 40, you get the same result. So changing this to a decimal here, it's going to get me 6.416666 ... or 6.41 with a bar notation, and then we're going to multiply that by 720. I am not too crazy about this because it depends on what the book says or what the question says. Round that decimal to the nearest hundredth, to the nearest thousand. So if the question said round that to the nearest hundredths, you would use this, But we're not going to do that. So let me see if we can, and again, let me see if we can change this. Again, so remember what it would be this over 100, right? Let's see if that works to it. And then times 720. So let's change the top. The top is 12 times 6, which is 72, I think. 72 plus 5 is 77 over 12. And then over 100 means over 100 times 720, right? So let's continue. So the first thing I'm going to do is take care of this. And let me highlight. Okay, so let's see if I can make my life a little bit easier. So I'm going to get, let me write that horizontally. I get 77 over 12. And 100, remember, it's 100 over 1, so I can write 1 over 100. And then finally, I can do that times 720 over 1. So I just rewrote the whole thing this way. Can we simplify anything? Ugh, oh my God. Yes, I guess. Divide this by 10 is this. Divide this by 10 gives me 72. Divide this by 12 gives me 1. Divide this by 12 gives me 6. Okay, so still not a pretty answer. Divide this by 2 gives me 3. Divide this by 2 gives me 5. So I'm getting 77 times 3 over 5. Okay, so it's 77 times 3 over 5. And honestly, I don't know if that's the better way of doing this question. 77 times 3 is 231 over 5. Okay, and 231 divided by 5 equals 46.2. Well, maybe not. 46, actually, not a bad answer. 46.2. So that ends up being my final answer. So 231 over 5 becomes 46.2. So 6 and 5/12 of 720 is 46.2. I prefer it that way. Well, the other one could have been, this is a more precise answer than the other one. That's the difference, because the other one is a repeating decimal, and we're not too sure what the question is asking or how far, how many digits after the decimal are we supposed to round it to. We could have used 6.416667 or 6.4167. It really depends. The longer, the more decimals used, the more, what do you call it? The closer to the actual answer would be, right? But there's no specifications here. So I'm thinking changing that to a fraction and doing it this way gives us the more precise answer. Okay. Number 3, we did this, and I'll do it again, only for, so 0.125, and I'm going to go straight and write them as fractions. 4.8 is going to be 48 over 100. 0.025 is going to be 25 over 1,000. And 1.6 is going to be 16 over 100. So we can multiply all this as fractions first and then change to a decimal instead of multiplying all the decimals as they are. I mean, there's no difference as far as the answer. You'll get the same answer, but maybe it's a different way of approaching this. So let's simplify. Let me simplify 125 and 1,000. I get 1 over 8. 8 and 48, I can simplify. 1, and this becomes 6. So see how there's nothing there. I have 1 and 1 here, so I already got rid of 2 large numbers. 6 and 100, well, we can simplify. Let's simplify 25 with this 100. 25 divided by 5 is 1. 100 divided by 5 is 4. I can simplify this 4. 4 divided by 4 is 1. And this 16 divided by 4 is 4. I can keep on going. 4 and 100, I can simplify that to 1 over 25. The 6 and the 1,000 I can simplify. 6 divided by 2 is 3. 1,000 divided by 2 is 500. Can I simplify anything else? So I end up getting 3 on the top. And then at the bottom, 500 times 25, God knows what that is. It's 12,500. Which I now will divide and change it to a decimal because that's what the question is asking us to do. So 0.0 doesn't work. 2, 3, still no. And at 30,000, 12,500 can go 2 times, which is 25,000. Right? And then we're going to have 2 left over, 5,000 left over. We're going to bring another 0 down. And 50,000 divided by 12,500 equals 4. Very easy, right? So our final answer is 0.00024. You can either do it this way, or you're welcome to multiply all those 4 decimals together, and you'll get the same answer. So it's just a matter. I personally think this didn't take too many brain cells. Okay? Whereas the other one, I have to make sure of multiplication and moving decimal over and counting all that. So I like it this way. So it's just a matter of time before you guys get used to it. All right, so a 4-man relay team ran a race in 3.5 hours. What's the average running time for each man? Okay, so 3.5 divided by 4. No big deal here, right? So it's 16 over 5 divided by 4. And let's put that 4 over 1. 16 over 5 times 4. No simplification. 16 times 4 is 64 over 5. Hang on a second. Yeah, okay. Something's not kosher here. 64 divided by 5, that's going to be 12.8. Wait a second. Oh, sorry. Ooh, I forgot to use the reciprocal. So 4 over 1 is 1/4. Right, that makes more sense. So 16 over 20, sorry. Right, so we can simplify. Divided by 4, this becomes 1. Divided by 4, this becomes 4. So 4/5 of an hour. So each man took 4/5 of an hour to complete their part, right? So it's a relay. And then 4/5 times 4 gives you 3 1/5. I knew something was off. Okay, so area of a playground, a rectangular playground, is length times width, right? So we know that much. So it says that the area is, the complete area is 240 and 3/4. So we know that this is 240 and 3/4. And we know that the width, so we don't know the length, but we know that the width is 40 and, what is that, 40 and a half? 40 and a half. How much is the length? Well, now, right, so we're going to divide both sides by 40 and a half. We end up getting 240 and 3/4 divided by 40 and a half. And that's going to give us the length. So now this is just a matter of playing with numbers again. Probably at this point you'll have a, I don't know if you have a calculator or not. But if you don't have, you have a choice of either dividing this in this way or the fraction. It's really, really up to you how you want to divide it. You'll probably get the same answer. Just a matter of preference, to be honest. Oh, let's stick to fractions. Let's see what I get. So 240 times 4. 40 times 4 equals 960 plus 3, 963 over 4. Ugh. So if I did it with fraction, I would get 963 over 4 divided by 81 over 2. Right? 2 times 4 is 80 plus 1, 81 over 2. Change that, it becomes 2 over 81. Hopefully that divides nicely. No, it doesn't divide. But the only thing we can divide, simplify, is this 1 over here, and that becomes a 2. 963 and 81, they're both divisible by 9. 81 divided by 9 is 9. 963 divided by 9, 963 divided by 9 is 107. So we get 107 over 18, and then we have to figure out, oh my god, maybe the decimal way is a little bit better. Okay, 107 divided by 18, ugh, we get 5 times, 18 goes to 107, 5 times, which is 90, and we have 17 over 18. So the measurement of the length is 17 over 18 inches. I forget what it is. Feet width. Yeah, feet. Yuck. Or you can take this and divide it by 40.5, and you can see how many times it goes in. That, and let's see if we. So we'll change the 40.5 to 405. We're going to change it to 40.7 to this, right? We move the decimal 1 over to get this to be a whole number. And we know it's 5, so it's going to be 2025. So if you subtract 12, 8 minus 2, 10 minus 2 is 8, 382, bring the 5 down, we know it's going to be a, well, hang on a second. We know it's going to be some number here, 405, maybe 9. I think maybe 9, 405 times 9. Yeah, that's going to work, because 9 times 5 is 45. 9 times 4 is 36. And again, this is going to be I don't know what kind of decimal it's going to be. So we got 0 left over. Let me just down a little bit. So 0, 12 minus 4 is 8. 8 minus 6 is 7 minus 6 is 1. Bring another 0. Let's just go one more time. That looks like a 4. 20, 16. We have 180 left. So 1.4. There you go. 5.94 and 5 over 17 over 18. Which one would you rather have? It's really up to you. Okay. Next one, something about a pumpkin. Last year, the pumpkin weighed 2,222 pounds. Jeez. Okay, so this year, Tammy wants to break the record by 1 1/3 times as much. So this was last year. So somehow she wants her pumpkin to grow 1 1/3 times. So we're gonna multiply this by 1 1/3. Okay. So let's multiply those two. Oh, yuck. So 2, 2, 2, 2 times 3, 4 over third, right? That's gonna give us the new weight of the pumpkin this year to break the record. So 248 is not divisible by 2, so we're gonna get 8,888 divided by 3. Let's see what that is. 888 divided by 3. 2,962 and 2/3. That's how much the weight of the pumpkin is this year, the new weight. All right, so from the new weight, we're going to use 3/5 of this. So from this new pumpkin, we're going to use 3/5. Okay, how many pounds will she use? So out of all that, she's going to use 3/5. Ugh, yuck, ugly number. So let's multiply. 2,962 times 3 equals 886. 888 over 3, right? Because we go back to this number. I think we had that over again. And then times 3/5. So that's actually going to give us a nice terminating decimal. And that's going to give us 1,777 and 3/5 or 0.6, however you want. So out of this world record pumpkin, you know, she's gonna, so 3/5 of that amount is 1,777.6, and that's the amount she's going to use for the pie. And where are we? 8. Okay, so let me go to 8. At the beginning of last week, his account was negative 15.08. On Monday morning, he deposited a check. So that's a good thing, right? And then on Tuesday morning, he deposited another 100, which means that's a good thing, positive number, right? So we can express this as a sum, and then how much money was in the checking after the second deposit. So basically, let's take care of these two. So 426 and 90, so it's negative 15.08. Literally, that's what he did, right? So we know our answer is going to be positive, right? And it's just a matter of subtracting the two values, and how much is he going to have in his bank account? This much. Okay. Find 30% of 60. Okay, I can do that. So 30% of 60, and then find 15% of 50. So 30% of 60 is going to be 18, right? 0.3 times 6. And 15% is 0.5 times 50, right? That's going to give us $7.50. We're supposed to multiply their sum by 1/3. So 18 plus 17. So we got to add these two now. We get 25.5 or 25.5. and multiply that by 1/3. So I much rather use the fraction. So 25.5 times 1/3, we get 51 over 3 over 2. Sorry, right? 2 times 25 is 50 plus 151 times 1/3, and we're going to get. Oh, this simplifies, right? 3 divided by 3 is 1. 51 divided by 3 is 17. And 17 divided by 2, so this becomes this, which becomes this final answer. A taxi service charges a flat fee for $4.20 per ride plus an additional 80 cents per mile. If a taxi ride costs $6.50, how many miles did the taxi drive? How many miles did the taxi travel? All right, so just to get in the taxi and just sit on the taxi, they're going to charge you $4.20 and then 80 cents per mile. Well, so the total was $6.50, right? That was the total. Let's subtract the flat fee. Flat fee is a fee that all cabs charge just for you getting in. It's not $4.20, but let's just assume. So in this case, this is for the non-traveling part, right? So you're left with $2.30. Right, so you paid a total of $6.50. This is the flat fee, right? And then $2.30, the $2.30 was for the miles, right? So you had $2.30. Each mile is 80 cents. So how many miles did you drive? Well, move this over twice. Move this over twice. It becomes 800. 230. Becomes 160, 70, bring a 0 down, 80 goes to 700, I don't know, 7 times, 8 times, 64, 640, you're going to have a 600 left over, right, 8 goes to 7 times, which is 560, 40 left over, bring another 0 down, that gives us 2.875 miles. 2.875 miles. All right, so for $2.30, that's how many miles the taxi can take you at 80 cents per mile. 11. What's 11? Oh, this is the stock market one. Okay, but this one was easy, so I'm not going to really talk about. I'm going to just move on to the next one. In the interest of making this video not too long. So 11, you guys are okay. 12, okay. Most liquids, when cooled, will simply shrink. Water, on the other hand, actually expands when it's frozen. Its volume will actually increase by 9%. Suppose you have 1/3 of a gallon. So this is how much I have, 1/3 gallon of water. And it increased by 9%. Okay, so water, and then, all right, and then this increased by 9%. So I'm going to have a little bit more than 1/3, right? Not quite 2/3 maybe, but I'm going to increase by 9%. So we can take the 1/3. Okay, so 9% is 0. Where do you go? 0.9. Okay, or you can write 9 over 100. But here's the problem though. So you can multiply 1/3 times this, find out what 9% is, and then add it to 1/3. Okay, so I'll do it that way first. And let's keep it as a fraction. So instead of using 0.09, let's use 9 over 100. So 1/3 times 9 over 100 is going to give us how much the increase is. So simplify. So you have, that was the increase. So this is what 9% of 1/3 of a gallon is. So now I have to add it to 1/3. So 1/3 plus 3 over 100. Let's see, 300. All right, so that's going to be 300. Times 100, right? Times 3. It's going to give us 309 over 300. So how much do you have now? You have 1 and 9/300 of a gallon. Wait, I'm messing something up here. Something wrong. Sorry. So the LCM is 300. So this was times 100, times 100, you get 100. And over here, this was times 3, this was times 3, so that becomes 9. I'm sorry. 109 3/300 of a gallon. So you can do it that way. Okay, so we found the part, 9% was, and then we added to the original value. Or my preference, right? So 9% is going to be, so if you add 9%, that's going to include the 100%, right? The original value plus the 9%. So you end up actually having 109% of the original value. Okay. So if you multiply that by 1/3, right, you get 109 over 300. Notice that we have the same answer. Okay, and we'll talk about this a little bit more because I think I'm losing you here on this. Okay, but if you want to find what 9% is and then add it to the total later, that's completely fine too. Okay. 13. Oh, last one. So this one was that ratio problem, and if you were in 6th grade last year, you did ratios. So here is what we have. We have Peter, and he owns 4,050 shares. We have Paul, who owns 2,510 shares. And then Mary, who owns 4,200 shares. And then for a total of, right, for a total of, let me add this up, plus 2,510 plus 4,200 equals a total of 10,760 shares. Okay. So now, one way of doing this, and remember I told you this is a part. Well, you already know that. Part total, right? So let me erase this now. We know that if, for example, and then what was the total here? 1,500,000. If one person held all 10,760 shares, they would take that much, right? So we have to find the corresponding ratio right here. We have to find the corresponding factor, okay, that's going to be applied to the number of shares so that we can find how much they would take. So the one thing you have to find out is 10,660 times what number, and it's not going to be a precise number, times what number equals 1,000, 1,500,000. So the easiest way to do this, okay, is to simply divide. And if you divide that, you're going to get not a precise number, you're going to get a decimal, and you're going to get 139 times, and I'm going to round it to the nearest hundreds. Okay, so that's the factor that we have to multiply. So this times this equals 1.5 million, which means that I'm going to take every single one of them, the amount of shares that they have, and multiply by 139.41. So let's start with Peter. He's going to get 139.41. 4050 times 139.41, and his share of the price is going to be this. Not bad, right? Paul, he's not going to get the bulk, but he's going to get times 139.41. His share of the whole thing is going to be 349,919.10. Okay, and we're probably going to be off a little bit, times 139.41, and Mary gets 585,522. Now, we add this value, this value, this value, should give us 1.5 million. And just for curiosity's sake, let me add them up. 0.5 plus 349, 919.10, and then plus Mary, 585.522 equals, so the sum of this equals, again, because our decimals are not okay, we're off by $51. It's a large quantity. So because this decimal here actually is a decimal that goes on and on and on and on, I actually rounded to a higher cent here. And that gives us this discrepancy. We're $51.26 off. Okay? But that's the idea, though. Okay? That's the idea. All right? We'll talk about this more tomorrow, but this is your video.